There's nothing more thrilling than nailing an insurance company.
And the truth shall set you free!
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Great moments are born from great opportunity.
All right, we're here in Las Vegas. Came out here for the Trial Lawyers University conference. We are, 2 days into it? John, Keyla, and I got Justin here, and we figured it's about time to kind of check in with everybody and let everyone know how the event is. The event's kind of interesting because it's got a bunch of seminars, but then it's also got breakout rooms, which are much more smaller groups, dedicated substance and material. And the one I was in today, for example, only had maybe 5 or 6 participants. So what's really cool about that for me is, like, today I had Matt Stump, who works with Brian Panish, and he's out here on the West Coast, and they do crazy numbers and do phenomenal things for their clients. So to have access to somebody like that, showing us their PowerPoints, explaining how they put together the story, that's the kind of stuff I came out here for. So 2 days in, I got to say I'm already pretty pleasantly surprised as compared to some historical conferences.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, you know, like, look, a lot of times what's interesting about this particular one is there's like 8 different tracks, right? There's like Wad-I, Spawn and Auto, Titans of Trial, Employment, MedMal. Like, so very, you know, if there's like one thing you want to focus on, that's just the main section. And then you've got obviously the smaller breakout one. I mean, I did the marketing one, which obviously that's important to me. And then we did one with John Romano, which was explaining basically your emotional injuries. So, you know, it's interesting, but it's also something that I've noticed is it really demonstrates, like, there's spectrums of individuals who have and have not tried cases. And, like, I think it becomes not like apparent, but you can tell, like, obviously people there to bet on themselves, but, like, some people I feel like don't have any idea. Well, whether it's per trial or sometimes what they're talking about. And I'm not talking about the instructors.
There's a law student attending, someone currently in school. Someone in my breakout group today has been a paralegal for, he didn't say how many years, but clearly he's been doing it a while. He's got a good grasp of how to work up a case. But he just either took and is waiting for the results or just found out he passed the bar waiting to be sworn in. Yep. Either way, but I have to say, it's like seeing that. I mean, I'm only 8 years in, but even just seeing that gets me excited because I know that there's enough people out there even coming behind us who want to do great things for people. Yeah. And you mentioned John Romano, who's from West Palm Beach, you know, down by us. You come out here, you know, we're in Vegas. There's a lot of West Coast influence. It's nice to see some heavy hitters from Florida come and, you know, and hold it down because, I don't know. I mean, you said Titans of Trial. I know that's like a track here. It's a phrase they use.
It's one of the track.
But I mean, I've never seen this many heavy hitters in our profession gathered, not just like together to hang out, but just impart wisdom.
Yeah, just giving their insight, like what they, you know, have. So
it's definitely like different ranges, like you were saying, John, and it's exciting to me to see the ranges because it shows me sometimes through their questions too, you can learn from everybody, you know. So because you have this amount of experience, this law student might ask a question that, you know, makes you think about an issue differently. And like you said, the heavy hitters, I mean, I'm just meeting them. It's so cool to see. I was with Eric Romano today, and tomorrow I have his dad, John, and I heard him in the trucking cases, for example. And I learned just about insurance from a very basic standpoint. You know, some of the insurances to look after, but they impart these just minute issues or things that you look for. It's like, oh, right, you know, that's a good idea, you know.
Well, that's the thing. You got to put it into like practical application. You know, it's also, I think about, obviously, you know, me and running and what like David Goggins, when he talks about like, oh, that's great. Like you can be super motivated, like you get juice, you heat, and that's what we're doing. We're seeing this, we're getting, but if you don't go back and put it in practice, it's just, you know, it's like what he says, like you might be super motivated, but then when you're in the suck, you know, that motivation, if it's not like there, you got to like work through it, you know?
Yeah. Well, highlights for me, I mean, there's a lot to mention, but I think just top of mind. So you and I, we watched the partner from Arnold and Itkin from Houston do mock voir dire. He basically showed you everything he does. And like 2 things, every single case, doesn't matter the jurisdiction, he's filing a motion to increase the panel size. He wants 100 plus. And the way he explains it, beyond the practical benefit of just having more people to choose from, ensuring the likelihood to get fair jurors. He's like, I explained to the judge, your worst fear is essentially busting this panel and wasting your time. So instead of just pretending like 23 or 30 is going to be enough, just give me 100. Let's take the time and let's get this case over with. The same guy said he also files motions to pay increased juror pay.
That was
Mind blowing.
I never even thought about that. I mean, because
And by the way, to be clear, we're not talking about like slipping jurors money. We're talking getting the court's permission to say, what's their per diem, $15, $20 a day? Don't tell them who's paying them, but tell them if you sit on this case, we'll pay you $200 or $300 a day. And he had a reason for it. It wasn't just for the sake of like getting jurors interested. His thesis was basically a lot of highly educated people, nurses, doctors, lawyers, engineers, and others. That money's not going to make a difference to them. But generally speaking, those people are very detail-oriented and not always the best jurors. But the other side of the spectrum of people who may not be as educated or may not have as demanding of jobs, they can't afford financially to miss work, no matter what their boss says. And so by doing this, you kind of put them in a spot where, hey, this might even be a net positive for me. I can be fully invested with my time. And it sounds like those motions get granted pretty routinely.
well, sometimes they split it, defense and plaintiff. So it's not like he's paying it all himself. And what's interesting is that when they file the motion and then, it's like Exxon, it's like, I'm not paying that. Judge's like, you're not paying half? You don't want to pay that? So it kind of puts some pressure on them. It's kind of like what we do when somebody's like, they're challenging authenticity of a document. Like we're bringing in records custodian, like, well, Judge, I mean, just because I, have to.
Well, but, it left me with this thought, which is like, you look at these, lawyer websites and you see all these results of other people in the field, and some of them just have these numbers. And you really just stop and think, you're like, on some level, I just can't even fathom how they got any case to $300 million, whatever, single plaintiff. But then you hear all of these little things that they're doing differently, creatively, and it makes sense, because if you're doing it everything like everybody else does it, you should probably expect results like everybody else gets. But these people are out there, and more important than anything else to me is that they're really sharing. They're not just out here glad-handing people, saying nice to meet you, but it's all mine. They're sharing PowerPoints, their closings. They're showing you how they do voir dire. I mean, today he gave us a copy of his call, like how he goes through cause challenges. Yeah. I mean, showing you how it gets done the right way. And I'm excited to put that like in action when we get back.
God, we got to try cases. I mean, that's the thing. I want to get back into trial. And we've got a couple, I don't even think we have anything coming up. We've got like Vargas coming up. We've got the chicken nugget case. So the little girl got burned. So we've got a lot of, why are we asking for like $45 million?
Yeah, that's another thing. I'm left with the impression I used to think, was it just a West Coast thing? No, it's not. It's just a lot of these lawyers who are getting big numbers are not being their own limiters. We had Joe Fried on talking about that. Don't be your own limiter. And now I see other people who are great, just like Joe, saying and doing the same thing. So clearly there's something to it.
He was like, well, I was like, what really put you on the map? He's like, well, he went out to Hawaii, got like a $400 million verdict.
Yeah, but when you try it all, what do you say? They tried 60 cases in their first 2 years. Yeah. So they got their teeth kicked in a bunch of times and learned how to. He had the analogy. What do you say? He's like, he showed a picture of the tape, the cassette player with a mixtape. He's like, everybody's out here practicing law like we're still listening to mixtapes. I'm trying to be practicing like I'm in the metaverse. Not literally, but just as a metaphor.
Like innovation can help in like not just technology, but in ideas. And I think that, I would have never thought to pay jurors money. Ever. And that was the one thing that resonated with me. Like, that's
well, how often? We've all experienced it. If we really stop and think, probably more than we even realize or remember, the juror, we're like, well, I love this person. She's great, whatever. But they have work that they can't miss or childcare that they can't afford or whatever it is. And we haven't put this into practice yet. I don't know if judges in Florida or Georgia are going to grant it. I don't know these things. But I know that conceptually there was like a shift in my mind where I was like, now I'm starting to question everything. Like every procedural component of the case, is there a way that we could turn it to give more leverage to getting a fair and favorable result? There's just another thought I had. You and I were in a class yesterday with John Romano. And what did he say about TBIs? A TBI is the amputation of your soul.
Yeah, a traumatic brain injury is the amputation of one's soul.
I know for sure I never said that before in a case.
Never. You know, we
But
just
I know when I heard it, the impression it left on me, you know?
Something I heard today, a really good analogy, but also question. So they were asking, like, okay, well, who were athletes, right? Who in here are athletes? And we think about professional basketball players, football players, and you just start going backwards and say, okay, they make this amount of money, right? They went to college, they did it in high school, middle school, and then so the the analogy they were drawing was how long it took for them to really become a professional in their craft, and then kind of put it to lawyers, right? We don't start really until 25, around the time we graduate from college, and then we can actually start with the practice of law. Even if your undergrad was poli sci or anything, like, you're not practicing the craft until you actually go to law school. And then after that, we all know how law school works and whether you intern or clerk. But they watch film, right? They look at the playbooks, they study it. And so then he asked that question, which I thought was a good question. When's the last time you went to a trial and watched someone else in trial? Like, this conference, one thing that it does is bring all of this experience together in one place, and kind of, it's like uh trials on steroids,
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
And so it, to me, it just, like, it pumps me up, like, gets me ready to be like, what's our next trial? Like, I'm ready to put this stuff in place. But also keeping in mind, like, yeah, we should be checking out some of these trials, especially, like, some of them are on Zoom. Sometimes I
Well,
check
they're all
out
on
hearings.
they're CVN.
Yeah.
Yeah, a bunch.
So the good benefit is, as a young lawyer, I remember I used to go and sit in and watch people, right? But now there's Courtroom Viewer Network, so we can watch John Romano, we can watch Brian Panish, we can watch what they do.
We'll get back to your Goggins, but that's what we need to do that collectively. I mean, you're never too old to learn, like that kind of thing. We're here. I want to take this back and continue to watch these people, continue to reach out. I also like that a lot of the people here, actually everyone, there are no exceptions to this. Every presenter I've been with has repeatedly said, email me when this is done. Not just like, let me know if you want a form. I'll do another Zoom, and then another Zoom, and then another, because rising tides lift all boats. And that's something, like, I personally subscribe to. But to see the people that they have every reason not to give back with their time or anything else, and yet they're doing it. And I think there's a collective win there, because what was it today? They were saying, like, we want to stop insurers being like, this type of case isn't worth shit, because no one's tried it and gotten a big number. So, like, if another firm gets a big number, it helps us, because then we could point to that firm's outcome and say to the insurer, look, this case is worth that. I don't know. I just really love the collegiality, camaraderie. It's an overwhelmingly positive experience. And I think these conferences, I mean, I'm just a skeptic in my heart. So I was like, I don't know about this, but it's been
It's pretty good. The big national ones, I think, are really good. I mean, not to say like FJ and the Workhorse isn't a good one, because I think it is. Like, Florida's got some of the top lawyers in the country, But to come out here and see like a different perspective of like people from Kentucky, people from Texas, people from California, people from Nevada, and seeing how they approach things, and honestly, there's kind of like a uniform like idea behind trials, right? Like, it's not, it's weird because a lot of the things that they're talking about doing, that it's like reaffirming, like, we do that, like the big is like, you got to have demonstratives for everything. We do that, and we saw one of the preventers, they were showing some demonstratives. I thought they kind of were terrible. The one that we work with RadView out of Florida, I think is exceptional. Now there's ones that work on liens, so that might be something that's advantageous for the clients. Maybe.
No, but how exciting is it to know that we're on the right track?
Correct. But then we learned that some things that we didn't do right, which is we are not deep enough. Like, in our cases, when I feel like I'm in my case, I'm not deep enough. It's like, have you talked to the coworkers, like in person? Have you talked to, various things? I mean, the last trial we tried, the guy was telling you, Jordan, that we should have flown to Colorado and saw the bunny slopes that she went down, when they tried to make a big deal about that and show like, this is what it was.
Trial lawyers, the nation's best trial lawyers, I mean, this is my personal opinion, but the ones that are here presenting and that I've had the privilege of listening to, it strikes me that they are thinking about trial always. Not most of the time, not when they can, always. And I think back to our day-to-day, and it's much more of a grind. The pleadings, the discovery, the fights back and forth. And I think like on some level you get too lost in the weeds. Even if we're doing an effective job, like that's the whole point here. This is not like, even if you're doing your client a service and moving the ball forward and winning some of these discovery battles, the point is it's taking your time and mental energy from ultimately where you want to be, which is trial. Because even if you never get to trial, somebody was explaining this in the presentation, like you want to be able to show up at mediation and have that adjuster. They're never going to tell you, but have that adjuster tell outside counsel, what the fuck are you doing that like they see this thing all the way through. They know the witnesses they're calling, every nuance of the case, and you're over here writing memos on discovery. I don't,
Yeah.
feel like we're missing here. We got to pay this.
Well, sometimes I have. Well, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say on one of our not the panels, but somebody that's a participant, it used to be an adjuster, right? And imparted knowledge on us with that. They're like, listen, they set a number in the beginning, right? They set this number. And so if you send a demand letter, it's going to be harder. I'm summarizing a lot of what he said, but it's going to be harder for them to get more money on the file.
But that's great.
Yeah, it is.
Because we don't look, as much as we talk about this, I don't want them to pay.
Some clients you do.
Well, look, you've got to decide which case you're trying, which case you're settling.
Well, I think the point from that with like setting the reserves or whatever they're going to call them
exactly.
is we don't want to be in a position where it's a case that probably should settle, but it doesn't for some stupid reason like that. Right. Like the reserves are set too low because we got involved in the case like too late from the standpoint of like really with knowing the good evidence, knowing the good witnesses. I mean, look, honestly, it's really giving me something to go back and work on because before and after witnesses, when I answer initial discovery, I'm thinking about it, and I'll confess, I'm probably not thinking about that until I know we're like a month out from trial. And can we be effective like that? Of course. But is that the best way to practice? Clearly not. These top dogs are out there nonstop prepping for trial. I mean, that's like how you said, like summarizing. I mean, but that's all they're thinking about. And the results clearly show that that's a winning mindset.
Yeah, I mean, I got to go up to Long Island, here soon. You're coming with me. I'll be happy to. Because it's cold. So, but no, like to meet a client, talk to the family, see where they go, talk to old coworkers on a case we're going to trial in March. Yep. And so like now we're 5 months out. So it's like, we've done so much work on a case that like, bro, the incident occurred 9 years ago. It's going to, by the time we go to trial, it will have occurred 9.5 years ago, and she's still treating.
I'll confess, I got frustrated watching one of these because they were showing a timeline from their closing. I was like, wait a minute, stop, go back. You got to trial in like 14 months? Like, yeah. I was like, man, I know courts are busy. There's very limited we could do to control that.
Yeah, but was that in Los Angeles County where they have like 600 judges?
It was a California case.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that many, but no, we've gotten to trial pretty quick. We've got to trial in 18 months.
I'm just saying, on average, that's not.
Yeah, these big cases where they're like disclosing experts late, and
Well, how about another tip too? I don't know. I think I heard it was yesterday. Maybe it was today. They were like, okay, so you're talking to your client. How are you talking to your client? On the phone. Okay. Do they come to your office? Yeah, they come to my office. Do you go to their house? Yes. No. Yes. Whatever. And then they're like, how many of you video record your client? I'm like, I don't ever do that. Like, honestly, I don't. I don't even think about it. Like, I will sit there with an iPad. I'll tell them I'm going to record this. I'll start recording. They'll be in my office. And I'll just start with like 5 minutes just to get them to almost forget the camera's there. And then I'll start going into what I know a depot will be like, pressing them on all kinds of issues. And then I'll stop. And right there. Now let's watch it. Like, you see how your affect is like you don't even care about yourself? Or like it'll jog like, oh, why didn't I say this? Or I probably should have gone further about that.
Well, I mean,
I really need to elevate. I'm taking away from this. Like, I need to elevate my
depot prep.
Just yeah.
Bro, they're like, we have like multiple days. I'm like,
yeah, 2-3 days.
I'm like, oh, I have like 2 hours a day for the depot. Like, you good? But it's
tough.
like, but the thing is, I mean, I think on the bigger cases, we've always given the attention to it.
Yeah, it's not even a slight about how we practice. It's more just like an appreciation of being more focused on the things that clearly end up paying dividends in the end. Then that's the name of the game. Client wants the biggest recovery. We want the biggest recovery for the client. So instead of like approaching all tasks with the same degree of vigor and effort and like enthusiasm, it's like, I think we need to, that's what I'm taking away. It's like, I need to prioritize client prep, witness prep, identification of witnesses.
We're going to try every case.
Another thing that every convention I've ever been to or conference has vendors. I mean, I understand it, but there's been a wide array of vendors, and some of the ones that are doing demonstratives. I don't know. There's just a whole. I'm realizing there are a lot more resources available to us than I'm aware of, and this just gets back to the earlier point.
Bro,
of
depot summaries.
Yeah, like sometimes I'm just lost in the weeds and not realizing there's perhaps a better mousetrap out there to help make things better, do it more effectively and efficiently.
I mean, that's the idea. You want to streamline your cases. You want to streamline your trial preparation, and I don't need to read every single depot. You read the depot and tell me what's important.
I won't do that for you, Phil.
Well, not you. I mean, there's a vendor
know.
that does that. You know, there's a vendor that does that. There's the vendor that, so they're doing like virtual assistants.
Yeah, isn't it like doc review? Like the people, well, I don't know, but like if you do doc review, don't you look at like a law firm tells you what they're looking to find?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, it's the same
So it's
concept.
Like, yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, they just give you a summary of the depot.
Yeah, the whole point is like there's a
Medical
lot of
records.
tools available, tools outside third parties, whatever, to
Medcrons.
free us up as
Yeah.
a trial lawyer.
I'll
So,
rate
like
the
to be
depos.
honest,
Somebody else look at these medical
I did it
records.
I did it for like Esquire Tech. You can literally go online, upload all of the medical records, and they'll put it all together, a singular PDF, tape, like the Medcron links, show you what's missing. There may be some record you're missing in there, like.
So- you know how like people like say, "Oh, I practice door law. Anything that comes to the door, whatever." They're like a generalist, and then you get people who are specialists. Even us, like, "Oh, single plaintiff personal injury is like our bread and butter," and then you could get even more specialists. Nah, I only just do trucking. I'm now convinced, like, just sitting here thinking about it, being a trial lawyer is actually even further than of a specialization than I even thought. It's not just a lawyer who happens to try cases. Like these titans of trial that you're talking about, that's I don't want to sound like a dead horse, but it is literally all they're doing and all they're thinking about. They're not simultaneously trying to be the best legal researcher, the best motion practice, the best at propounding discovery, whatever, the best rainmaker. Like they're not focused on all of that equally. They are focused on their craft, which is trial. And honestly, it's really making me feel like even specializing more and freeing ourselves up, all of us. I know Ray's not out here.
So
but like,
Fisher Redavid, we're looking for litigation lawyers, non-trial, to join
no,
the
people
team.
want to get experience and learn how the case is made. And I'm not talking about like turning a blind eye to cases. I don't get that impression either. They're hands-on, but just in a different way. They don't have their hands on every last thing. They're hands on the people who have their hands on it, you know? And I think, I don't know, the results don't lie, you know?
You know what I also heard today?
What?
The MRIs don't lie. And that's something that we used in Lorna Stennett.
I was going to say, did you hear a presenter say that?
Yeah. He was like, the MRIs don't lie. You know, and that's what we used in our, like, that's the thing. Like, when I talk about affirmation of, like, things we're doing, like, that was something we used in a case because they were like, oh, she's not hurt. And I'm like, it's on the MRI. It's right there.
So in Marsha's case, remember there was, like, some testimony that she, like, forgot her keys or, what was it? Forgot her keys, phone, PIN number, whatever it was.
Yes.
PIN number. So I was just talking on a break, and he's like, what did you do with that? I was like, what did I do with that? We elicited that and kept it moving and just argued later. This is evidence.
Well, no, she had, remember, there was no pin. The phone she had, it was like a cracked phone.
There was something she forgot. I don't remember what it was, but it was like,
It was, she couldn't remember the pin.
She couldn't remember the pin, so it was an unlocked phone.
Yeah, it was
I
unlocked
thought there
phone.
was something else.
Well,
I thought
I think it might have been like certain
about her
date.
flight when she got on the wrong flight.
maybe it was. There was some forgetfulness thing anyway. And he was saying how in like mild TBI cases, like if you have any evidence of forgetfulness, he's like, just spin it into a number where like statistically it starts, the significance of it starts to make sense. Like, ladies and gentlemen, let's just say she forgets her keys or like where to turn off for work, whatever it is. Pick it once a week. One thing, one small thing a week in a vacuum, no fucking big deal. Who hasn't done that? I probably did that 5-10 times a year. Right. But she works 50 weeks a year. That's 50 times a year on average she's doing that, probably even more that she remembers. Is that normal? You saying a normal person forgets their keys or forgets their
Can't
PIN?
find it like 50
or whatever,
times?
50 times a year? No. That's the brain injury, folks. And you think it's going to get better or worse? You know, he's like, and then you can confront the defense expert with that. Like, that's the stuff, like, when you're prepping, get it out from your client in the depot. He's like, when the defense, somebody said, like, the defense, oh, what can't you do now that you could do, like all that generic shit? Not enough. Pressure on client further sometimes. I got to follow up for that, blah, blah, blah. Get all the examples out because the defense expert's going to have to read it. He's like, don't give the defense expert a freebie. I read the plaintiff's transcript and she didn't really say anything. She just said, get it all out so that you can confront the defense expert. Like, that's normal to you?
Yeah, I think the other one was insomnia, because like think about it. What's the most important thing to like really truly be healthy, right? You want to
sleep for sure.
Sleep, right? You need 6 to 8 hours of sleep.
Ask Justin. He knows.
Yeah. And if you're affecting you're like if you're losing, let's say you're losing 1 or 2 hours of sleep a night, right? Let's just say that. Now it's 5 to 10 hours a week. Now you're losing 250 to 500 hours of sleep per year. Right? And you're going to say, oh, everything's fine? 500 hours of sleep lost? You know how that detriment? And that's like, and it's going to get worse, and it's progressive. And like, what happens in 20 years? She's lost 10,000 hours of sleep in 20 years. 10,000 hours of sleep because of what happened. Like, that's not normal.
And they were also saying, like, before, what your before and how they were, don't just have a little bit of evidence, like, oh, I got it out. The testimony is out there. They're like, for every category, everything that you say, have a wealth of evidence to back it up. Oh, you're forgetful.
It's inconvenient.
Inconvenience, right?
Just have other witnesses come and talk about every aspect that you can, not just you heard it, so check. It's like you
have a story for
jury,
each damage,
exactly.
right?
You get the jury to understand this. Your client's story, your client's life, and how it affected them through the stories that you tell on each category and each issue. So,
yeah, I think next trial, like, because the ones we have that are teed up, like, are 20 million plus asks, for sure. And we'll have stories for each one. Because, like, physical pain is different from physical suffering, right? Physical suffering is different than mental anguish. Mental anguish is different from the loss of enjoyment of life. Like, all of these things are distinct, unique categories.
Well, it's like we know that going in. I mean, like, I knew that coming here, but then I sit here and then I'm like, but I don't really explain that well enough to the jury.
I think, like, our damage focus is, we do an okay job. I keep thinking about Diana Saintfield Lopez. When they came in, she's like, she's 100% hurt. It was their fault. They gave all the medical bills, and then was like, no permanent injury. When she had her disc removed from her neck, jamming in a prosthetic device. It's unnatural. You're not born with it. It has a failure rate. It's not it's going to get worse. And yet they were like, it's not a permanent.
I actually brought that up about like having to get devices taken out today on a break. Because I asked, like, do you give ranges or just recommend a number? And generally it was recommended number. But with the idea of the range, he was like, I think this was Matt. He was just saying, generally it's like, well, I don't know if ladies and gentlemen, if she's going to need this device taken out and need that second surgery. I don't know. But if she does, you got to keep that in mind. Because
you have to give it to her now. Right. You've got to take care of her now. You just don't know. Bro, that shit was kind of making me sad. I got an artificial disc in my neck, and I'm like, everybody's like, oh yeah, those things fail all the time. Then you got to have another few. I was like, what?
I hope not.
Dude, I'm 5 years in. My disc is amazing. So, but someone was talking about like, oh, like if you have surgery and you get better, they're like, oh, it's ruined our case. And they were like, it doesn't ruin your case. You know what it does? It proves your case. Why? Because she was hurt. It was traumatic. She got surgery and she got better, which meant what was causing her pain? The disc they took out. It wasn't something else. Like, people get concerned about that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we were talking about it's a similar thing, but we brought up in one of our breakout groups, the plaintiff who goes to the gym every day since the accident. Not maybe they missed a couple weeks, but now they're back at it. And like, it's not even about flipping the narrative and trying to pull a fast one. It's just being real about it. It's like, what would you expect them to do? Deteriorate into nothing now? They're not supposed to at least have a quality of life? Forget your health. That doesn't mean anything. You just have to clearly explain. That's why we're bringing up, like, have you gone to Orange Theory? Have you talked to the trainer? Do you know what modifications he or she has had to make? Because I bet you they're lifting less or doing different exercises.
Should have called the person from Orange Theory. Remember we had that with Meister. We didn't bring in the gymnastics thing. Like, she had to quit that. Like, we didn't, like.
Too much can't come from the client, I think, is what I'm getting at. Like, the client is obviously of paramount importance. If the jury doesn't like your client or something, you're probably fucked. But not everything can come through, though.
100%.
Well, bosses, employers, teachers to the extent, or professors, a trainer in the gym. The point is like nobody is truly objective, impartial, no skin in the game. I mean, no skin in the game in a literal sense, yeah, but everyone's got some interest if they like the person. But it's like it makes sense. Have the jury hear it. You could be 5 minutes on the stand. Who are you? I'm John Smith. What do you do? I'm a trainer at Orange Theory. How do you know the plaintiff? Actually, she was my client before and after. What's changed? Well, now she doesn't do this, this, and this, and this. Thank you. Goodbye. And like we don't. It's like because it would only take 5 minutes, we decide like don't call the person. We don't even. It doesn't even occur to us when it's like no, we should put them on the list, have them testify. Now the jury has that proof, not from the client. You know. So I know we started talking about this earlier in the episode, but forget the geography for a minute because there's people from Canada and all 50 states. It feels like there's a lot more people here than I thought there would be. You know, it's like people. Oh yeah, I want to be a trial lawyer. I want to be a trial lawyer. There's a fuck ton of people here who are fully invested. I mean, what? Every morning we're starting at 8:30. Nobody's really done until 4 or 5. The breaks are relatively short, and you're getting like real work in. It's not just fluff, and it's really cool to see that kind of enthusiasm from all these people. Like really cool. Plus, there's a lot of people. There's some criminal stuff. There's some employment stuff going on. It's not all just single plaintiff, personal injury cases. Although that's the majority, but I don't know. It's exciting to see a lot of people out there who are eager to hone their craft. It really is.
Yeah, man, you got to get better to do better. And so I think learning, I mean, that's how like everything is. Like we've learned from, watching people. We've learned from just doing it, getting up there and trying different things. I mean, remember, we did the opening in Marsh Gonzalez from the vantage point of the father, that was something different. We told the story like in Meister. It was like something different, like a different vantage point. And sometimes it's like, it's good to be creative, see what works, see what doesn't. And this kind of, reaffirms like, look, what are they doing? Is there some secret sauce? And a lot of times it's not that there is a secret sauce. It's sometimes just like the way they do things, even though you're doing it, they just do it better. Yeah. Right? Like, so.
Well, yeah, I mean, I saw PowerPoints today. There's not a single thing I saw on any of the PowerPoints, not one, whether it was a demonstrative, a timeline, how they chart out damages and categories, none of it. Nothing I saw was earth-shattering. Like, we do all this. Their PowerPoint, though, is like a 10 out of 10. Ours is like a 4 out of 10. Visually. I'm talking about just graphically. And, like, it's such a small thing or, like, an easy thing to overlook and be like, this is sufficient. But I'm telling you, when I get the slide deck from the Panish firm, I mean, this shit is otherworldly. It's like a professional made it.
Yeah, I mean, and now I build the PowerPoints out for so that's always, Jordan's like, yeah, these are like 4 out of 10.
What are you saying?
What's this Christmas tree, red and green?
Listen, we've been building them together for years. This is my point, is that, like, we need to be thinking bigger picture, but...
That shit is fire.
Average at best.
What? What is that?
Average at best.
Listen.
What are you saying about my PowerPoint?
Man, y'all
No, I'm
crazy.
telling you, wait till you see it.
I'll just say this. One of my biggest critiques, remember, second week with y'all was Marsha Gonzalez I was like, oh, we can work on those graphics. Like the
graphics.
The 100%. I've told this to, I think I've told it to you. I know I've told it to Ray, was like, you guys are the ear candy. Let me help be the eye candy.
I love that.
Kind of thing. Just to.
I want all of that help. Like the next trial, we need to just rework it all. We have the right ideas. We just need them packaged better. Also,
I just think it's funny, Joseph talking out in Vegas. Hey, let me be the eye candy. I'm like, all right, we got you.
Why not?
It's just funny.
Did we mention we were in Vegas?
Oh yeah,
I think so.
Yeah, I think we told him.
Oh.
Yeah, we're in
My
Vegas.
pockets.
Well, that's
are
why
in
he's
Vegas,
yawning
for sure.
the whole time, because we're in Vegas.
Yeah, well, for some reason I decided to stay on East Coast time out here in Vegas, so I'm in bed by 9:30, up at 3:30.
Yeah.
Hey, we're getting workouts, good breakfast.
Yeah, man. Yeah, I'm at the gym. I'm like up, turn the TV on at 4:30. I'm like, oh, it's like normal day. It's East Coast already up and moving. Hit the gym by 6.
Yeah, it was 4 o'clock this morning. I'm on the phone with my sister. I'm like,
It's like 6:39. I'm ready to go to bed. Let's just be real.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, because we're like mentally stimulating our brains and. Man, now you gotta tip my PowerPoint.
Tomorrow.
I don't
my
hate
feelings
your.
are hurt.
No,
I'm just letting y'all know my feelings are hurt right
You should
now.
be excited because what matters is the data, the content we're doing, or the ideas of like how we are laying it out. All of that we're doing. I'm just saying it's the next level graphic. That's all. And he said it very very plainly, he was like, this is not magic. This is every defense lawyer you've ever met. The best ones with their presentations. It's still just a PowerPoint. It's still generally speaking text on page, text on slide.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you take yourself out of that world, like so that when by the time the defense gets up, whatever they put up visually is so just uninviting and boring that the jury doesn't want to hear it.
You didn't like my occipital lobes?
I mean, you got to learn
And
how
the
to use
temporal
Prezi.
lobes?
I'm so sorry.
And
You got to learn how to do its Prezi.
nah, I'm not doing Prezi. I'm a
They
pilot.
did there's one on Apple. What is it called?
Keynote.
That's what they did.
Keynote.
I'm telling you, I do Prezi every mediation, and I've been settling at mediation.
You have you've been on fire. Shout out to Keyla, by the way. She has been on fire. Really closing cases, and not just like for the sake of it, but the challenging cases where there wasn't coverage. You got people, individual defendants to pay. That's a tremendous accomplishment.
Why do I feel like with this microphone, I want to just start jamming into my head like Wolf of Wall Street? Like really, while we're sitting here. So for those of you that can see the video on the podcast, we're actually having handheld mics because we're traveling. And so you can envision me as Leonardo DiCaprio screaming and then jamming it into the side of my forehead. That's what I feel like I should be doing right now.
You going to the costume party tonight?
No.
Come on, man.
I don't have a costume.
You can dress up as defense lawyers.
I could.
We don't have the
I don't have a
suits or,
jellyfish
you know.
costume, no spine.
Damn.
Then I just come in, what are you? Like, I'm a defense lawyer or I have a TBI because my soul has been amputated. No, man, it's really like I'm excited and supercharged. And like what it reaffirms and one of the like stupid things like having a goal. Like setting goals and like we have goals, but generally I don't think we have goals. We haven't set goals of saying, this is where I want the firm to be, this is where the growth I want to do, this is how much I want to work, you know.
That's part of the reason why we're starting monthly. We need to just get together. All of us need to be on the same page about what we're trying to accomplish.
Right, and we don't
Again,
file,
this is the point, John.
We don't
Taking
file
our
suit.
fucking heads out of the weeds. All of us. Like, I really wish Ray was here because, like, I'm leaving with some bigger picture shit.
Man,
Like,
I
bottom
got a baby
line.
coming on the way, man. I'm out in like 5 months. Y'all gonna be like, bye, 3 months of paternity leave.
All right, man.
You got it from March to June. Don't see. Although I say that, I'm gonna be in the office like, all right, I gotta go. Like 2 kids and a baby.
I know you're gonna be in there.
Oh man, but no, like I think it is like bigger picture stuff and like knowing like look like what we've done and where we've grown. It's like I think we have tremendous accomplishment as a firm, and it's like it's almost like maintaining that momentum, right? And coming to these kind of things is like. Get you that momentum, can go back and regroup, put some things in place. If we've got to get, like when I was talking to Jason Arnold right at the end there, he was like, look, what we do and because I was like, look, man, like what clicked, what happened, he was like, honestly, we just kept reinvesting in the firm. He's like, I didn't go out and buy like fancy cars or all that kind of shit. Like I brought in better people. We were training the younger lawyers and like, like I want to start being in a position where I'm not so bogged down in the weeds that we can do that, right? Like I can train more. I'm a more trial by fire kind of guy. I give like insight of saying, hey, here's the outline I did in the depot, like figure it out. Instead of saying, look, these are the kind of things you want to look for. Let's do the direct of an expert. Let's do the cross of an expert. Let's do all these kind of things. Let's talk about spinal injuries. Like impart my knowledge onto you, And I think part of it's because like realistically, when we started, I didn't have much in terms of a mentor.
Look, life is demanding. Owning a business is demanding. Practicing law is demanding. When you combine those things, it's hard, But I think if we all come out of here on the same page in terms of like strategically what are the best next steps to take, and we do it collectively as a team, we'll get there. Like I have no concern. It's not going to be a people issue for us. It's not a time issue. There's enough time in the day. It's just about reorganizing and reprioritizing. And I think if we just like really make some subtle tweaks, I really believe this, the next 18, 24 months could be 10, 20x what we've done historically with just small changes. Yeah. We've got the greatest clients. We've got the greatest commitment to them and like getting the case done the right way. Now we have just a few more tools, I feel like, in our arsenal. And I'm excited. Like I actually want to come back next year. I mean, obviously I want to hear more people speak. That's the one downside of these. It's limited. It's like choose between the 3 greatest people, but you can only see one. It sucks.
I think they're going to make it available for to it,
Still, I mean,
I booked. Remember, we were going to go to the Paris Trial College.
Yeah.
And we booked it, and I had on-demand access. I've watched like one.
But still, I want to be in the room. There's something different.
It's something special about being in the room.
So when we come back next year, and hopefully Ray can join us, I want to be in a position where I could literally go find Matt or John or Eric and be like, hey, thank you, by the way, because in the last year I incorporated this. In the last 3 trials we hit, you know?
Dude, I don't know why this is where my mind is randomly going. When you said life is demanding, I thought of the song I Saw the Sign, because she says life is demanding or something like without understanding. And by the way, I might have a TBI, like I fell upstairs. And no, I haven't had any gummies, but I don't know. I thought as soon as you said that, I was like, isn't that from somewhere I know? I was like, I think it's an Ace of Base song. Dude, I sang it. I was like, that's what you said. I was like, who is that? And I figured out the song. And it was impressive, right? Yeah, I'm to quote Lewis, I'm squirrel, right? That's where my mind goes. And
You're the squirrel from Ice Age or whatever that was. That prehistoric? Yeah, chasing.
Oh, man. But no, I mean, I try to stay like loose, man, so my mind can come up with stuff. You know what? But I think that trait is what makes me adaptable, like in trial. Because remember when, like, for the first time, I don't know why we found out for the first time in the trial when they had the video and the nurse was like, if your dizziness is still getting worse, like, let us know. Yeah. And but the dizziness was in the medical records, and they were like, I was like, what did they just say? Oh, they told her if your dizziness is getting worse. Like, I think that was a really powerful moment because the defense was like, there's no dizziness. Their experts were like, there's no dizziness. I was like...
Yeah, but if we had identified that earlier, we could have used it with all their defense experts.
I'd have been like showing the video, like, look in the video. She was having nerves, and they're like, oh, well, that's just because she got up because of her blood pressure. I mean, that's what they kind of said. Right. What's it? Hypo what?
I don't remember.
You remember from Hannah.
I know, I just don't remember, literally.
Hypo, gonna figure it out later.
Hypopotamus.
No, it's when you're hyper or hypo in terms of your blood pressure. I can't think of the term for it, but there's a specific term for it. That's what they said it was based upon. So, I mean, look, the reality is like, I'm looking at it like my goal was to be a presenter in 5 years.
Okay. I like that.
Like to be, and not even that is like we've talked about, it's like, we're going to be doing like these, like the prison negligence cases. Nobody takes it. No, like, is there anything about here? Nothing about that.
No. Although, interestingly, we had some discussion like on breaks in my breakout room today because somebody had a case where they were concerned their client was like tatted head to toe, all over the face, hands, you name it. Not like something a turtleneck and a little makeup's going to cover up. And he had like 14 or 15 felonies. But besides those characteristics of the case, it was a great case with tons of coverage. And I was talking about, I was like, it's those types of cases kind of fall into like that unsympathetic, from the outside looking in, plaintiff case. That's like a prisoner often. Like your first impression is this, but I was like, I think you just got to embrace it. Yeah. And you got to really just ferret out all the bias you can in voir dire.
You can talk about juries like people with tattoos.
But you also, I think, address it, right? Like, I think what a lot of people do, and I think it's a mistake, is identify the things that make them uncomfortable and then ignore it because it's uncomfortable.
Right.
And you have to address that in the trial. If you think those tattoos are fill in the blank, however you feel about it, then someone on your jury, no matter how well you did voir dire, they might be a great juror, but they have these biases, right? And so you just address it. It's like somebody told a story earlier, but I have a similar story about a client that just, we were not on the same page, right? The only thing that we are on the same page about is going to trial. That is what we're on the same page about. And I knew that the jury could see, one, that he was out there, right? Like he was. And two, not faking that we have a relationship. You have to be genuine in front of the jury. And if you think your client looks, a little out of the world, address it, and when I first got the opportunity talking in front of a jury, it's like, listen, you might not be inviting him to dinner. Like, none of that matters.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think on some level, our credibility as the lawyers matters almost more than the clients, believe it or not, because if we lose our credibility, the case is over regardless, versus if the jury is left with the impression that we're legit, even if they're like a little suspect.
Hey, just talk to him. Be like, I'm afraid my client has tattoos from head to toe. And I'm afraid that because of that, he's not going to get a fair trial. So I need to ask you, like, what are your thoughts on people that have tattoos? Do you think that, you know, and I mean, and I'm talking a lot,
But like,
but just ask them.
but just hearing that the person signed that case up and is not like intimidated, but they're just looking for the best solution. How many people would turn that case down? I'm just saying the group of people here, like I love that. That's not just like, I mean, look, it's not just like, oh, I signed up a truck wreck paraplegic case. I was just wondering, how do you think, you know, those cases tend to be a little bit more straightforward, as tragic as they are. But this is a tragic case with like objectively some hurdles, and instead of just running from the obstacles, they're embracing it. I don't know. I love that. That kind of shit gets me excited, you know?
Yeah, I mean, we've had clients like that, you know, and it played out well in depot, you know?
Yeah.
He's like, I know what I look like. He's like, you think I am not cognizant of that? When people look at me like I don't care about myself. I worry about my daughter, you know, and what she has to deal with because of how I look. You know, and I thought it was pretty powerful. Like, it was a very human moment. And that was like, you know, that's the kind of thing you need, is like, get people beyond that, recognize you have a good case, and you don't go fight for them, man.
I think it's like, to piggyback a little bit off what you're saying, Jordan, like the people here seem to be passionate about what we do. You know, it's not just the big numbers. Learn how to get there, but why are you getting there? It's very client-centered, right?
Yeah.
And, you know, making sure you're following up with that client. Why? Because in order to help you, I need your help, you know? And that's, I mean, we're always telling clients that, right? Like, I need your help as much as, you know, you need me.
Listen, we have real life experience. I was on the outside looking in mostly, so I was like second chairing. But that first 7-figure settlement we got for that elementary school teacher, that was because you were doing back then what all of these titans are telling us today to do. The car wreck with the landscaping truck.
Oh, yeah.
You were at their house, there, Central Florida.
In the hospital.
No, but I mean, like, but not just for the sake of it. And then you went to mediation, and you took an adjuster and a defense lawyer who I legit think were ready to just tell us, thanks for coming, there's a sandwich here when you hit the road, and got them to pay $2 million. I told you back then what a remarkable result it was, but now it's like really smacking me in the face. Like, yo, what the fuck? John did that. I mean, you've done it more than that. I'm not, but like that was a case that stands out. You did exactly what these people are telling you to do.
Yeah,
and it paid off.
I went to their home, like we broke bread all the time, did the day in the life video. I mean,
you almost got people to tears with your mediation presentation. And I'll be real, we don't have a lot of that going on. And I'm like, we can be real about it. Like, that's not how every mediation is going. And I'm not suggesting every case is going to like have the facts that warrant that kind of.
No, but that allowed me the opportunity to like know the layout of the hospital room, know how he was, watched him do therapy. I remember the therapist came in to watch him get out of bed. You know, just watching that. You know, they had a wound vac. You know, and it's like seeing all these things in person. I remember I had to fly out somewhere, and I drove up the night before.
I do.
And then like drove home. Oh, I was like gassed.
So again, I think we know intuitively what the right thing is.
That's the way to do it.
But we need to like, and I need you to hold me accountable, and I'm gonna hold both of you and Ray accountable. Like when I say, like, take your head out of the weeds. Remember the big picture here. That's what's gonna get the best result for all our clients. So
yeah,
I'm excited for tomorrow. I wish, you know, I'm excited to get back home and see my wife and kids. But this has been. I'm glad that the sacrifice of time to travel someplace, because everything is by Zoom nowadays. Like, it's so easy to just sit back and be like, let me press play when it's convenient for me. And there's something to be said for that, fine. But coming out here was definitely the right choice.
Yeah,
and I'm
100%.
very excited.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know because I wouldn't press play. I'd be in the weeds. I'd be like, Discovery.
Yeah.
Bro, that's why, and I think about it, it's like, you know, the motion, I'm like, oh, why didn't I file something for the 8 months I had it, and then the judge switched, and then didn't get the relief I needed because I took too long. And if you have other people handling it, you don't have to deal with that. So.
All right, so thanks for checking in with us out of Trial Lawyer University, out here in Vegas. It's been a good conference. We're excited to keep it going, and we'll talk to you guys next week.
Yeah, we'll see you guys soon. Thanks for
Ciao.
jumping in. Bye.
1, 2, 3, 4.
There's nothing more thrilling than nailing an insurance company.
And the truth shall set you free!
I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Great moments are born from great opportunity.